Hello everyone, welcome along to the Chargers TB podcast. It is Derby week and a big week in Tasmanian basketball, and it's great to be back after having a week off because obviously my sparring partner JB has been touring around Tasmania and yet interstate as well too, doing the rounds and saying hello to the masses, but he's finally back with us here this evening to record the podcast tonight, and great to have you back with us, JB.
Yes, doing the annual statewide tour, Ronnie. I try and get my months a year in to go and see Mum, see Dad and catch up with the folks. So managed to do that, managed to get a trip over to Melbourne in the meantime. I unfortunately wasn't able to catch a Chargers game. I wish I'd have planned that one a little better. I probably could have squeezed in some games on the Sunday just gone. But nonetheless, we are back. We've had 2 road trips and we have probably the biggest home game of the season so far coming up. So a lot to dig into, Ronnie, and certainly a lot coming up.
Absolutely, there is, JB, and what a big weekend it was on the road for Mackay Timber Hobart Chargers. Obviously, they went down last weekend. Both teams went down and went 0-2 on the road, but both teams bounced back nicely here, getting the win here. Now, I haven't brought all my equipment with me, so I'm just going to quickly look at the phone, JB, and find your notes because there were some big results over the weekend, that is for sure. And let's have a quick look at them. Now. We did mention round 7, and we might just move on from round 7 because I think no one wants to talk about that one, JB. Let's focus on round 8 of the Mitsubishi Motors NBL1 South competition, where they defeated Casey by 16 points in the women's game and lost to Elfin in 5 in the game of the round, which you could see on KO Freebies. Sierra Walker had 22 points. What do we have there? Is this I haven't read these notes properly.
They're the round summaries there, Ronnie. So.
Oh, it's an average.
Yeah, Sierra Walker, as you mentioned on the weekend, 22 points.
There you go.
4.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 2 steals a game. I mean, that's massive, particularly when we look at how well she's played as a shooting guard. Zoe Richards, she had a really nice double-double, 20 and 10 piece there in Game 1. Game 2, still prolific, not quite as impactful, but still averaged 21.5 on the weekend to go with 8 rebounds, 2.5 steals and a block. Jada Jansen chipping in there as well, averaged 13 points, 2 rebounds, 4.5 assists to go with half a steal and a block a game. And Kayla Steindl, death taxes as normal, a rounded 19 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists there to go with 2 steals and half a block in each game there as well, Ronnie. Of course, we talked about round 7, 0 and 2 needed to bounce back in a big way to go 1 and 1, as we mentioned, going down in tight one there by Eltham. But mainly there, Ronnie, I think the big one there, competitive against Eltham, but really avenging that loss that they had at home against Casey OT in Anzac round was really key for them there as well. A tough second half against Eltham really had them struggling there. And I think that just came down to running out of legs. You've been on the road 2 weeks in a row. You've had to fight really, really hard. I mean, it was a really tight game against Keilor back in round 7 there. Did go down convincingly by 21 against Knox the other weekend as well. So to be able to bounce back and really put in some fight, and Dwayne Davey touched on it, Ronnie, and you'll be able to extrapolate on that a little bit more. Dwayne Davey, very happy with the effort that the girls have started to put in and certainly sort of adding a bit of grunt to their game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, listening to Dwayne Davey today at his press conference and being there, it was... he was quite happy and commendable with the effort that the girls are putting in and certainly the changes that they have made throughout the course of the last 3 or so weeks. JB has certainly changed things around for this team. Now they've just got to really bring it on Friday night. So it's good competitive showed by the women's side. It's good to see that they're trying to find this inner mongrel. Dwayne Davey talks about they're all being too nice. It's good that they're trying to find this kind of mongrel in them to really get a bit more of a competitive edge. So it was I felt like a really good result for the women. It would have been lovely to go 2-0, definitely, but great to see they got one back on Casey, where Casey got them at home, and then really good to see they put up a tough fight against Eltham, but Eltham were huge down the stretch there, seeing those last few minutes of that game on the KO freebie. So No, really good. Dwayne's in a positive mood, so that really sets up some good things for Friday night, JB.
Yeah, it should be a massive game Friday night, Ronnie. Of course, 6 o'clock tip-off there at the Hobart Netball and Sports Centre, and they are taking on intra-state rivals, the Derby for Heritage Round, Ronnie, taking on the Launceston Tornadoes. Now, this will be a different Launceston side than we saw earlier in the year. Of course, it is a different Hobart side, but definitely a different Launceston side. They are almost at capacity there. You're going to see Keely Froling potentially, or is she floating around? I'm not sure, Ronnie. We had conversations earlier that Keely Froling may not be available due to Opal's duties there, but you're going to have Trinity Oliver that's going to be there, Subi Daly, as we know, Sarah O'Neill has been huge, Macy Crawford, Ava McDonald, Josie Pinkerton, who we've seen a little bit of this year as well. Lily O'Neill had a good showing last game. Amber Brasendale's been around for a while. And Abby Brown, she's the Hobart girl that travels up and plays. So, I mean, a different side there, Ronnie. Obviously, Hobart the same. But the last thing that I think we can certainly take away from what Dwayne Davies said, and particularly when we saw how they played in that first round, is they're going to have to be aggressive, they're going to have to be competitive, and they're going to have to assert themselves very early on, because Launceston aren't necessarily the coldest team in the league, and they're sort of in that similar position to Hobart where they're wanting to punch above their weight, cause a little bit of damage, and certainly push towards that top 8, certainly the bottom part of that top 8 there in the women's competition. So it's going to be a massive battle there. I don't know exactly how it's going to pan out, but we are certainly going to see a different contest than we did way back in round 1.
Can confirm that Keely Froling will be suiting up on Friday night. That was confirmed by Win News earlier this evening. Once again, watching the Win News Bulletin, and good work by Tilly Helen up in the north covering there. And, of course, Hayden Corns covering the media down here today in the presser. And great to have Hayden jumping on the basketball with us. So, yes, Keely Froling will play. Their Belgium import will play as well too, JB. So, Launceston come in at full strength. Now, whether or not Hobart... Now, the team list we've seen, JB, Kayla Steindl is potentially lining up for the Chargers. She has been named in that team sheet that we've received early this week. But she may or may not be suiting up. So she might be a 50-50 call for Friday night there. Yeah,
it could be a tactical move, and that'll be a real chance for the team to try and step up there. I mean, that's playing against Keely Froling, and she's been preeminent in this competition for many a years, Ronnie. I mean, we've seen her have a 50-piece. We've seen her have 40 and 20 games. You know, she's the number one matchup right there. I don't think anyone's doubting that there. You've only got to see how Sister Alicia played in the Knox game a couple of weeks ago. I mean, much of a muchness there, but they have their own subtleties about it as well. So it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Plenty of young talent, local talent as well in that Launceston lineup, Ronnie. So you're going to see a lot more familiar faces and names than normal. Dwayne Davey did mention in his press conference they're wanting to get some more minutes into these young players, Ronnie. I mean, from our standpoint there, does that mean that we see more of a Chloe Broomhall and a Claire Murray and a Coco Aaron this time around? Is that something that, you know, potentially from a matchup standpoint, Dwayne Davey looks to assess and sort of play against their own strengths in a sense?
I think so. I think potentially Chris Simons, who was one of our guest commentators in the last home game, pointed it out that probably some of these youngsters should be getting a little bit more court time. And I think the club has responded to that nicely by trying to get some of those youngsters a bit more court time over the last couple of weeks on the road. So I would assume the same thing here going into Friday night's matchup, that some of those youngsters will be getting a little bit more time on the floor, and with the potential Steindl maybe being in or out, it will be a bit of a next woman up mentality, so to speak. And if Steindl's out, if that's the case, but if not, I expect this to be a barn burner. And looking forward to it, JB. It'd be very hard to pick this one. And of course, JB, they are playing for the Greenwood Mitchell Trophy. That trophy is still out there, and it's still recognisable. Of course, Andre Greenwood and Donna Mitchell, two big names in Tasmanian women's basketball, and they're playing for that trophy. And of course, Heritage Round, as you mentioned, JB. I'll touch on a little bit more about that in the podcast. But Friday night is with the promotion we're getting out there, JB. It's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely massive. And, I mean, the key part about it as well is it's not like the Tasmanian rivalry is not like any other rivalry. I mean, a lot of mainland rivalries is, okay, it's suburb to suburb. We played each other in a championship game or a championship series, or we had a memorable game here or there. No, this is almost half of the state versus half of the state. I know we've united that Cascade Bogues line at Campbelltown for quite some time now with Jack Jumpers, Ronnie, and that's been sensational as far as the identity of the Tasmanian basketball fan and of Tasmanians in general. But when it comes down to NBL 1, that line does get drawn again, and travelling up and down the highway is just as big for a lot of these teams as it is travelling interstate and taking on a Geelong and taking on a Knox or taking on a Mount Gambier. So it's going to be absolutely massive. I mean, no love lost between either side. And I think from a Hobart standpoint, they're going to want to try and get this 2-0 on the year. They haven't had 2-0 against Launceston in quite some time. And it's going to be a battle depending on whether Kayla Steindel's there or not. But that'll be a heavy motivation there to be getting 2-0 against Launceston, winning on your home court and continuing to press for finals. That's for sure. On the other side of it as well, Launceston want to come out and show, hey, you didn't get us at full strength last time. We've got a lot of competition, a lot of fire in the belly with us as well. We want to come down and split this because we are not going to give you the pleasure of being 2-0 anytime soon.
Absolutely, JB. And going to be a good one on Friday night. That is for sure. All right, let's go to the men's side of things, JB. I'm hoping you've got your notes there ready to go because I certainly don't have, as I said, I don't have all the equipment here. I have all the equipment that we need to record on, but don't have all the notes in front of me. But I tell you what though, JB, it was a big win on Saturday night against Casey in overtime as well too. That was a sensational game, regardless of the commentators absolutely blowing their tonsils out. It was a fantastic game of basketball to watch. Both sides really bringing it, and big plays down the stretch. Really good weekend for a lot of individuals, and then they backed it up. Got the win against Eltham, which was, again, a huge win there. They were able to, again, close for out, and then they were able to push it there midway through the fourth and then pick up the win. And none of us in some way, shape or form, JB, expected that. But true to this men's side, they step up. They didn't have Terrell Brown. They worked their backside off. I seem to keep eating humble pie as much as Stewie wasn't on the road over the weekend. Of course, Stewie unfortunately had COVID and Mark Shivers took the reins, and Shivers done a great job with the team and got them 2-0, and now all of a sudden they are 8-5 currently at the moment, JB.
Yeah, massive weekend, Ronnie. As you mentioned, 2-0, the win against Casey and Eltham, and it was only for a combined 10 points. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you want to look on the other side of things, when you look at the women went 1-1 and won by, they had a positive of 11, Ronnie, plus minus of 11, and they only went 1-1. So games and margins like this can really make or break a season. So massive effort there by our men's team. Deontay Daniels averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists to go with 2 steals per game. He was crucial. Joe Chilcott, 14 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Had his best game there on opening night. Jacob Richards really picked up in game 2 against Eltham. And that's something I noticed there, Ronnie, watching those games. Players who necessarily weren't on for Casey certainly were on for Eltham. And it was a major contributing factor there as well. As I mentioned, Chilcott, 14 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Jacob Richards, Mr. Consistent, 14.5 points, 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists over the weekend. Geordie Strathmore, another player we've seen, Ronnie, starting to take that step on the road. He's been crucial in their rotation when they haven't been in Tassie. 12.5 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists across the weekend. And Mr. Wham Bam Jam himself, just dominant as a big man once again. 21 points per game, 13.5 rebounds a game to go with 2.5 blocks. As I mentioned, Ronnie, major bounce back. Considering their 2-0 weekend the weekend prior, really disappointing, something that they certainly wouldn't have had and something that almost could have set them back depending on how this weekend certainly went. I mean, Keilor themselves dominated from the line that weekend and they just ran out of legs against Knox. And as we know, Ronnie, generally when our men's side, and it's sort of a historical thing, when our men's side managed to go to an overtime game on a Saturday, quite often on the Sunday, you're not very confident as a Chargers fan because it does get to half-time. They do get to a point in that game and they do run out of legs, but full credit to them that they held on. 2-0 weekend, and you've got to remember, Ronnie, that was also despite not only Terrell Brown, But we're also talking about Clint Steindl not necessarily being the most active player on that weekend either. So you lose arguably two of your three best players. You go 2-0. Yes, one of them was Casey, but as Stewie pointed out, a talented side. You don't force the competing team to OT if you can't be competitive. Get the job done against Eltham. They're 8-5 right now. They've got they've got a home game to try and get 4 games above. A few road games here or there. They don't have necessarily the hardest schedule going forward. Can really be one of those moments, real turning point there. Coach isn't on the road. You don't have your best players. That's real character building stuff. That's something that's going to set them up really, really well moving forward.
Yes, it certainly will, JB, and the men's team thriving on the team morale. Beyonce Daniels spoke nicely today at the press conference as well too, saying team morale is at an all-time high and everyone's contributing well. And Terrell Brown, if the fans noticed in the background, he was getting some shots up actually while the press conference was going, and having a bit of a look at him afterwards. That ankle is looking good, JB. So Terrell Brown is certainly going to look to light it up Friday night down to Hobart Netball and Sports Centre. So both teams coming in with some good form. Obviously, though, Waverley gave Northwest Thunder a bit of a touch up. But out of the 4 games, the Thunder won the last 3 of those 4 games. And certainly it will come in with some confidence regardless. And everyone always gets up for this derby. And there's no love lost between these two teams, as we well know, JB. Of course, they don't play. They used to play for a trophy, but I don't believe they do so now. But still, there are bragging rights up for grabs. Stewie has pointed out that the Chargers do not want to go 0-2 against the Thunder at all this year. Chargers are looking to bounce back after not being ready and prepared in round 1. Chargers are on a high right now, going 2-0. This team is up and about. Again, there'll be some minor changes within that starting lineup. Again, we feel that Clint Steindl is a 50-50 call for Friday night as well too. But we certainly know that Terrell Brown is back in the lineup. So a lot to play out here, JB, and I'm expecting this one to go down to the wire. Certainly both teams have proven how strong they can be in this league, and certainly they've shown that when the chips are down, they've certainly shown how both teams can really bounce back. So looking forward to this matchup Friday night.
Yeah, going to be massive, Ronnie. And I mean, for those that aren't as familiar with the Thunder list as us, just from a local standpoint, there's a lot to like about this team.
Yes.
Ben Woolley's been massive
Oh,
this year.
yes. Yes.
Cam Brown, former Charger, always big on the glass. Eli French, their young point guard there. Paul Campbell's been with the team for quite some time. Riley Haywood's getting his minutes there. Trey Armstrong, as we know. Siku Swallow getting it done. Seth Swavel getting it done as well. Ty Withers has joined that group there. Paul Campbell, as I mentioned. There's a lot to like about that team there, Ronnie. And as we know with the Thunder, they provide a real local and a real competitive list every single year. I mean, the big one there as well, Sire Deans.
Yes.
Coming back for the rest of the year. So you're going to see him and Jacob Richards as the development players, past and present, with the Jack Jumpers. They're going to be going at one another there. Trey Armstrong feeling nice and refreshed. It's going to be a real battle. As you mentioned, the Clint Steindl factor is key, but on the other side of it, if Ollie's going to continue to show that kind of poise, you're going to have the downhill runner, Terrell Brown, extra motivation with Joe Chilcott, Beyonce Daniels, Jacob Richards stepping up, Geordie Stratsma stepping up. This is going to be an absolute barn burner of a contest. Usually, Ronnie, and we sort of pointed this out throughout the year, normally we would get the Thunder on the very back end of the year. Return derby is at the very end of the season. Well, for once this year, it's actually being held mid-season. So it certainly changes things. It probably doesn't play. It probably plays into the Thunder's hand a little bit more. I mean, obviously the Chargers feel they're a much better balance than they were a few weeks ago. But Stewie usually likes to have the team hitting their straps 2 weeks out, heading to finals. So for them to not be there at the moment is a little bit of a concern as far as not being 2 weeks out from finals. But at the same time, you do have to back your team, and this is the ultimate test right now. Are you going to sink or swim in contention this year, particularly around the top 8? This is going to be an absolute barn burner, and I have a feeling the Thunder would be sitting the same as well. Hey, this is a good opportunity. Let's test ourselves. Let's get this chemistry going, and let's see where we sit as well.
Yes, JB, going to be an absolute ripper of a game on Friday night, 8 o'clock tip-off. Of course, you can get the tickets by Intix. We'll have a description in the description below. We'll have the link there for you. And of course, if you can't make it, and we're hoping it's going to be a sellout, JB, as well too. If you can't make it, tune in by the NBL1 website or the NBL1 app. Make sure you sign up to an NBL Plus account, and you can see all the games live and free on any of your devices that you stream on. And of course, you can join myself, JB, and Chris Simons, who is coming back onto the broadcast team for Friday night. You can hear us call both of the games through the website or the app. So get amongst it, and looking again. Can't wait for Friday. We dub it as Tasmania Night, JB, because again, it's not often that we get to do it. We only get to do it twice a year, but we always dub it Tassie Night here in Hobart.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good night, Ronnie. I mean, a Friday night fixture, probably a little bit unfamiliar as well for the Thunder and the Tawns, who are usually Saturday games, so that might even help in the Chargers' favour. Be very interesting to see how the road trip travel goes for some of those players. I'd imagine some of them probably won't be doing a full day of school. Others may even get there on the Thursday, depending on what sort of options they have available. But yeah, going to be a massive weekend of hoops. There's no doubt.
Yes, absolutely. And we did mention as well too, it's Heritage Round across the NBL1 conferences as well too, in the Mitsubishi Motors NBL1. And JB, there would be so many memories. I could talk about the Hobart Chargers being around the club for near 2 decades, and I've certainly seen the uniform hasn't changed as much. There is a green. There used to be a green uniform that went around in the first 5 or so years of the existence.
Oh, you mean the cease and desist uniforms?
Yes, JB. Yes. If I can find a photo, I'll flick that through to you.
For those that are wondering why it may have been cease and desist, it looked very, very similar, albeit without the colourway of the Detroit Pistons uniforms at the time. And from my understanding, Ronnie, the Detroit Pistons themselves didn't really appreciate it.
No. Fancy a small city in Hobart getting up the nose of one Detroit Pistons, and the lawyers coming into play on that one. That's yes, that was certainly something to.
As much as Corey Davey and Andrew Beattie were good basketball players, I don't think you were going to mistake them for Grant Hill at that particular time.
Yes, that's very true, JB. Absolutely, but we'll try and share some nostalgia during our broadcast on Friday night. Of course, Chris Simons has been around the program as well too.
We've got a retro photo of Chris Simons floating around.
We'll have to find it, JB, and we might just flash it up on the screen. So, yes, we'll certainly get onto the nostalgia of a Heritage Round. But great to see the NBL1 embracing the history of. Well, I mean, all the state leagues have had different names and different changes as the years have gone by. Of course, there was the old ABA national finals as well too. Of course, the winners from all the conferences back in the day which they do now still, but yes, back in the day used to meet and play off for the ABA national titles. So. Yeah, lots changed over the time, but as I mentioned, JB, great to see that this round they've initiated this round and dubbed it as Heritage Round, and certainly a good thing by the league. Yeah,
and I mean not just from a Tassie point, Ronnie, but also some of the people that the NBL1 are promoting as well. I mean, old school footage of Luke Longley way back in the day when NBL1 West was SBL. So. Just gives you an idea of the kind of players and people that have been around these leagues for quite some time, and some of the history as well. I mean, we talk about this probably more internally, Ronnie, but from an NBL1 standpoint, a lot of people don't realise there are very few clubs and there's a lot more associations in relation to it, Ronnie. So you've got to think of the history for some of these associations. I mean, you look at Geelong, for an example. They've got NBL history that they can tap right into. We talk about the SBL and some of those teams that eventually had guys like Vlahov and Longley that went, pretty global themselves and how they played. So, really, really good stuff there. I think it's a really smart move And I think with enough preparation and time, now that we've got a bit of a test run this year, you're probably going to see some retro jerseys in the future as well. So, something exciting to think of in the future, but no, a great initiative by the league.
Yes, absolutely, JB, and great. It is fantastic to see the league throwing in these theme rounds and respecting the history that has been now, then, and forever. So, well, that pretty much wraps us up for this edition of the broadcast. Wait a minute, we need to plug before we wrap up, JB. We need to plug the socials. You can, if you want to follow us on social media, and again, we've been getting social media off left, right, centre. We have a big team that's doing a lot of hard work behind the scenes for you, and you can give us a like on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel as well too, where you'll see today's presses, and you'll see this podcast as well too up on the YouTube channel. So don't forget to keep up to date with all the goings on here for you. Mackay Timber Hobart Chargers. Now we can kind of wrap things up, JB, and looking forward to having you back down here in Hobart on Friday night. As we mentioned, myself, JB and Chris Simons on the call for the derby, and looking forward to getting back behind the mic, JB. It's been a while.
Yeah, it'll be almost 3 weeks, Ronnie. So that'll be really good. I mean, that'll be a bit of a warm up for us, of course. No rest for the wicked. We've got the Northwest Basketball Union finals the following weekend,
yes.
And the Chargers are away, so we'll get at least 1 week to rest these dulcet tones, but. No, it should be good to get behind the mic. Good to catch up with Chris once again. And, just get back on the floor and get back into the action. Yeah,
no, looking forward to it. Of course, round 9 of the Mitsubishi Motors NBL1 South coming your way this weekend. And it all starts off with the Tasmanian Derby between the Launceston Tornadoes and the Hobart Chargers. Of course, the Northwest Thunder taking on the men's Chargers side as well too. That'll pretty much wrap us up here, JB. Thank you for dialing in. Of course, JB is still away currently at the moment. That's why we've got him hooked up on the phone. Of course, I'm coming to you from Swisher Hoops Academy here. And a massive thank you to Swisher and the University of Tasmania for allowing us to pinch one of their rooms here, JB, just for about 45 minutes or so to get this podcast done.
Yeah, Kate and Anthony, absolute stars with that. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, on behalf of Justin Bryan, I'm Ron Riggs. We will see you Friday night at the Hobart Netball and Sports Centre.